Hello and welcome to another Dev Diary review. I did a video on the upcoming 1.31 patch a while back. Since then, there have been about 10 more Dev Diaries, so there's a lot to cover. We will start with the natives today because in my opinion, that's the biggest change in the upcoming 1.31 patch. Natives have been completely revamped, which they really sorely needed. If you're like me and have never really played around with natives and don't have a good understanding of their mechanics, fear not, we now don't need to learn them because devs have decided to finally update them. First of all, we know the 1.31 patch is coming with an expansion DLC. However, it was suggested in one of the dev diaries that the changes to natives might be linked to old Conquest of Paradise DLC. So you shouldn't need to buy the new DLC to see these changes if you already own Conquest of Paradise. So let's look at all the changes coming to natives in the new patch. The first big change is to migration mechanics. If you're unsure how the current migration mechanics work, well, you don't need to know it anymore because in the new patch, migration will work differently. There will be a new concept of tribal ownership of land as well. You can see it in the map where provinces have borders but not filled with color. These tribal lands are only semi-owned by you and any army can traverse it. Even a colonizer can colonize that province. Natives can add a province to their tribal land if they have migrated to it before for a cost of 100 admin points. And it seems it needs to be connected directly to your current main province. Also, the current migration cooldown of 5 years have been completely removed. So now you can migrate to a province just using mill points. And the cost of mill points will depend on the distance you migrate. So now the migration is limited to monarch points rather than time, which is a fundamental change to how natives will be played. It's also now important to migrate because the longer you stay in a province, the more devastation you will cause there. You also get a little tribal development growth as long as the province isn't 100% devastated. Tribal development is also a new mechanic where the natives will accumulate tribal development over time and it will move with you when you migrate. The idea is that as natives, you are taking resources from the land, causing devastation in that province, and using that to increase your tribal development. This development will be added to a province once you settle down. Important to note here is that not all native tags are allowed to migrate. Some start as settled tribes. The next big change is how natives reform their government from primitive. There are new government reforms for natives now. I am not going to go through each one of them as the numbers are subject to change before patch release. We will look at some of the interesting ones though. The base reform will give you plus 0.1 monthly reform progress, which is significant I think. Tier 1 reform has a new plus 0.05 tribal development growth modifier. We don't know what the base growth is for this mechanic, so we'll have to wait and see if the modifier is significant. Tier 2 reform gives an extra 10% reform progress growth. With Tier 3 reform, migratory tribes can now settle down. When you settle down, you get the tribal lands as well. And settling down also adds a tribal development to one of your provinces, and this costs 50 Diplo points. Tier 4 reform is where these tribes can reform off a European colonizer. It does appear you will still need to be next to a European core province, so not much has changed here. Tier 5 reform is where it gets interesting. You could remain migratory and not settle down, and rather than reforming off a European, you can reform yourself and choose to become a monarchy or a republic or a theocracy or a horde. This is great. I'm not sure how fast natives get reform progress growth, but if you have ever played a primitive nation, you will know the pain of waiting around for a European to settle near you so you can reform. It's completely RNG dependent and can take anywhere from 50 to 100 years. Finally, we will be able to reform on our own. It's fantastic and I love this change. The native buildings in the current patch are a bit of a mess, so I'm glad to see they are being updated as well. In the new patch, we will have unique buildings which cost 200 ducats. The ceremonial pit seems very powerful with 50% advisor cost reduction and plus 0.2 reform progress growth. There's also a building that gives more tribal development growth. Then there are normal buildings where you can build another one which gives reform progress growth. So between government reforms and buildings, there are a lot of modifiers to reform progress now for natives. Federations are these loose defensive alliances which have been overhauled in the new patch as well. Now you will be able to name a federation to whatever you want when you form one, and there are some scripted names as well there. Federations will also have a cohesion value now. This is basically how stable a federation is. You get more cohesion if the members are the same culture, and you lose cohesion when there are different cultures in there, or if one of the members is stronger than the leader. The cohesion value will also increase if the federation is bordered by one of the Europeans. Again, we will know the final modifiers when the patch is out. Along with all the new mechanics, North America is also getting a massive map overhaul. In the upcoming patch, there will be 53 new provinces and 56 new tags, which seems like a lot, and I'm excited to see it. Most of the changes will be in the Southeast US and the Great Lakes area. The Southeast will get 21 new tags, and there's no Creek Confederacy at the start now. In the Great Lakes region, the biggest change is that both Huron and Iroquois confederacies have been broken up into multiple tags. So overall, this is what the map is supposed to look like. It looks a lot more populated than the current one, and when you add the tribal lands, the map is basically full. We can also see the impassable Appalachian mountain ranges added to the map. I live right next to them, so that's really nice to see. Some province names have also been revised in the new patch. And looking at whole North America map, this really is an ambitious overhaul by the devs, and I'm excited to see how it plays out in game. The new natives will also get new missions, although we will discuss them in detail when the patch is out. I will likely go over everything on my Twitch stream. Make sure you follow me there, twitch.tv/RadioRes. There's a general mission tree for all natives, and there's more specific ones based on region, and important tags and federations like Iroquois will have their own separate mission tree. There are also new regional national idea sets. So far we have seen idea sets for California and Northeast regions. The California native ideas look good, but these aren't the final numbers, so I'll wait to comment on these till patch release. The Northeast ideas are not as good, but again, we'll discuss it on stream on patch release day. If you're curious to read more about them, all dev diaries are linked in description. Then there are also multiple regional events following historical records, more of a flavor than game-changing modifiers really, but that's basically the whole point of this natives overhaul. Now, the North American tribes are more historically accurate, and they have better game mechanics, at least on paper, which should make them more playable. I really do appreciate all the work and research that was put into making this part of game more appealing, when we know really no one plays as North American tribes. Well, hopefully with so many new tags, we will find some good and interesting starting positions. Also, with all these new tags and provinces in North America, there are definitely some questions about late game lag. The devs have said it shouldn't affect late game that much, but we'll just have to wait and see how much it actually affects. One thing I should clarify here is that there are no changes to Mesoamerica or South America. This part of the new patch only focuses on North American tribes. And that was all the new native mechanics and tags and provinces and everything else coming up in the new patch. They definitely look interesting and probably worth playing a full campaign. In the next video, I'll cover some of the new and updated game mechanics and religious changes coming in the 1.31 patch. Make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss out on it. Till then, thank you for your time. You're watching a Radiator's Guide, and I'll see you all in the next one.